Okay. Hi, I'm Ross, and I'm really excited for you to be here today because I've got something quite important to share with you. It's a discovery that I've made involving children and their math skills. Now, it's a little bit controversial because, well, basically, it nearly cost me my job. But don't worry, if you're a parent of a child aged 8 or 9 who's struggling in maths, then you're really going to want to listen because what I'm going to be sharing today is something that can really help you understand what it is that's causing them to struggle and then exactly what it is that they need to do next. Now, chances are a lot of you are here because something has happened which has made you think, hmm, I need to do something about the things my child struggles with in maths. Maybe it's that you've seen them working at the kitchen table doing their homework, and it's homework that's maybe supposed to only take 10 minutes, but it's taking them 40 minutes, and there's tears and frustration, or maybe you're just getting blank looks off them. For others, it might be that you've had a conversation with your child's teacher and they've explained that, your child is really behind, they're really struggling, and that's stuck with you. One parent that I spoke to recently, they were in the process of moving their child to a new school. And in order to join this new school, her daughter had to do an assessment. And that assessment came back as showing she was working well below the expected standard. And that was the thing that really caused her to think, I need to do something about this. I need to find out what it is that's causing my child to have these concerns, have these anxieties, and also giving the parent the anxiety as well, so that we can try and put a stop to it. Now, a quick bit about me just before we move on. My name's Ross. I've been teaching in schools for over a decade. And for the last 5 years, I've really started to focus on maths, trying to figure out what it is that allows some children to thrive whilst others continuously fall behind. And for the last few years in particular, I've been working with children aged 8 to 9. That is the age of the children that I work with every single day. And well, not just now because we're on break at the moment, but that is the group of children that I work with. Now, if that's the age of your child and it sounds like they're struggling in math, then please pay attention because I'm going to be giving you some amazing pieces of information that you can start using today to get what it is that you want, whether that's just having them participating in class or just having them being more confident in themselves and their own ability. Maybe it's because you want to take the role of helping them yourself and you want to find out exactly what the different methods are that you need to teach them. And all of that is what I'm going to be sharing with you today. However, there are 3 main secrets, and I'm sure one of them, I can possibly guess which one it is. One of them here is what caused you to come today. And the first one is finding out what is that one skill that schools just skip, even though it's the one skill that allows children to make amazing progress. I'm going to be explaining to you why that happens today because it's really shocking. But this one skill, when this one boy called Christopher actually started learning it, he made an entire year's worth of progress in just 3 months. It's amazing when you put it into action. And then the second skill, this is a study just outside of Harvard. And if you're a parent who thinks, I don't have time to help my child, I don't know how to support them properly, then you're really going to find this interesting. This study from Harvard has just explained that home learning, when done correctly, can be as effective and sometimes even more effective than actually working in school. And the cool part about this is it's particularly powerful for children who are low on confidence. So if your child is in school and you know that they're not participating, they're not putting their hand up, they're too scared to give answers to things, then this is something that's going to really, really support with them. And then finally, secret number 3. I know this is the one most parents get very excited about. It is a 100-year-old Russian theory. I call it a forgotten theory because I've not met a single teacher that speaks about this, at least the second part of it, which I'll be revealing later on. It's a Russian theory that forces children's brains to become addicted to their work and get into full focus on maths work, as if they're playing a video game or watching TV, which are normally things that children get more excited about than doing their work. But I tell you, when you use this theory in the correct way, you can really help them make amazing progress just by focusing on what it is that they are doing. So if you're with me and you want to find out exactly how you can take your child from struggling with their homework, being resistant to practicing at home, giving you that concern of will they ever catch up, and you want to take them to a place where you're able to feel more relaxed, feel more in control, and be able to give them clear instructions or give them something that allows them to make progress at home, then please stick around because I'm going to be revealing all of that today. But first, what's going on? Why is it the case that so many children around the world, in fact, are struggling in maths? And here's the thing. This is because teachers simply overcomplicate things. Now, when we're at university and we're learning to become a teacher, whether that's at university or teacher training courses, we're taught by inexperienced mentors. Now, I know you might be thinking, but surely the lecturers there have taught for a long time. And it's true they have, but many of them haven't been in schools for a very long time. And the world has moved on since they have been teaching. And they're still teaching us the same old skills, the same old methods that they have. And none of it is really giving it to the children. None of it is really showing them how to make that progress in the same way. And one example that I can give you is I remember there was a tutor from my school, my university, and she explained how she was so jealous of us young teachers going into the world of work and how it was the best job in the world and how she wished she could go back to it. But that really confused me because she only taught in a real school for 3 years before becoming an academic. And that's part of the point. They're far more interested in teaching us the academic side, the theory of teaching, rather than the actual practical learning itself. And who misses out because of that? It's the children, because they then aren't given the correct curriculum in the way that it needs to be taught for them to make real progress. And it's so crucial in maths as well that children are taught the core skills that I'm going to be revealing to you today. And of course, it's not just the parents, the children that are suffering, it's the parents as well. Because when parents see their child falling behind, when they're having difficult conversations with the child's teacher, it's the same. They feel that pain too. Now, if you're wondering and you're thinking, oh no, but how common is it that children are falling behind? Am I really in a small group here? The answer is no. In the UK, where I grew up, 44% of children are working below the expected standard in maths. 44% of children aged 8 and 9. And in the US, if that's where you're from, it's only slightly better, but it's not amazing. 38% of children are working below the expected standard. And you really need to understand this part. It's not your fault. It's not your child's fault either. As I just explained, we're delivering a curriculum that we don't truly stand behind. Teachers are told what to teach. We're shown within the actual curriculum frameworks themselves, this is what children need to learn. And that doesn't work for all of them, which is why you have them staring blankly at the work, feeling as though they can't even do simple methods. You maybe have seen your child counting on their fingers for questions, for sums that are not necessary to be counting on their fingers. There are other methods for that. And you're starting to think, well, why are they so behind? What is it that they're learning? Have I done something wrong? And that's just not the case. This is because of what's happening within school. And I've spoken with teachers that have taught for longer than I've been alive, and they all say the same thing. There was one teacher, she was at the very first school that I worked at, and I was brand new. She was my teaching assistant, and she was fantastic because she'd been teaching for longer than I'd been alive. She then transitioned into being a teaching assistant. So she was there to help me pick up all my resources and all the other things that I was massively disorganized about when I first started teaching. And I said, why are there so many children that are falling behind in maths? And she looked me dead in the eye and said, well, it's always been this way. Some children fall behind and some children do well. It's just what it is. And it shocked me so much that she had been in classrooms for as long as she had. And at no point had she thought, this isn't right. She just accepted, yeah, some children are going to find it hard, some children are going to struggle. So what that really led me to believe over the coming years, and as I say, this is why in the last 5 years of my career, I've really started to focus on maths, is because that change isn't going to come from school. I try in the classroom, and maybe even your child's teacher is really trying, but as you're going to see from some of the stories that I tell you in just a moment, no matter how much we try in school, if children are behind at age 8 to 9, the only thing that's going to help them catch up is by working at home. And that does put a huge burden on you. But hopefully by giving you the information that I give you today, you're going to be able to feel a little bit more in control, and you're going to know what it is that you need to work on with your child. But truly, just before I get into this really did nearly cost me my job. I've said that we're told to deliver a curriculum that we don't really stand behind. I'm really more of a trainer of training children to pass tests rather than actually teaching them the core skills that they need. And you'll see in a moment just how this got me into a little bit of trouble. Now, it all starts with Elgin. Now, as we're going through this, please just really try and think, does this sound like my child? Is he having the same behaviors as my child? Is he having the same thoughts as my child? Because I'm sure, whilst all children are very unique and very different, there are always things that I see as patterns with children who are falling behind in maths, whether it's counting on their fingers for things that they don't really need to do, just having a complete aversion to even starting their work, to just resorting to guessing instead of trying to get the answer wrong, instead of trying and getting the answer wrong. So many of them struggle with that. So as I do this, just have a think, does Elgin sound like your child? 3 years ago, it was after the summer holidays, he came to my class and he was tired. He was worried. He was exhausted. And I could tell, because it sounds terrible to speak about a child like this, but he just looked rough. He had big bags underneath his eyes and his shoulders were slumped. And as he came to the classroom, I tried to be as positive and optimistic as possible, as teachers often do. And I said, "Good morning, Elgin." And he just sort of grunted at me and dragged himself into the classroom. Now, the problem here, as I'm sure you can understand, when children are struggling with maths, that really impacts everything else within their life, particularly within school. They just think, oh, this is what school's like for me. I just come in and find stuff hard. They're having those thoughts in their mind of, this is tricky, I can't do this. They see other children in class doing really, really well whilst they're struggling. And that can be really, really tough on them. But after I met Elgin, I then met his mum. His mum was called Carla. Now, please, 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 before I go any further, go easy on her in your mind. You're going to hear some of the things that happened and you'll think, oh goodness, that wasn't very good of her. But please understand, she was trying. Maybe you even resonate with some of what she says as well. Now, when I saw her, she also looked tired and worried and exhausted. And she came over to me and tried to introduce Elgin. Here's what she said. She went, Hi, I'm Carla. I'm Elgin's mum. He's not really a maths kid. In fact, he barely slept last night because he knew he was going to come into school today and do an assessment. So yeah, he's really, really bad at maths. She managed to say twice, just in the first introduction that I had with her, how bad her son was at maths. So not only had this taken a toll on Elgin of how he saw himself, but this was something his mum was just falling into, this pit of despair and acceptance that he was just bad at maths. He's not a maths kid, which is so sad because you want to be their cheerleader. As a parent, you want to be behind your child, giving them that support, but continuously having the repeating patterns of struggling in maths, trying to do work, but having an argument about it, always having to be nagged and bugged just to get them to do work, but then getting the same reports back off the teacher that, oh, they're not really paying attention, they're not participating, they find this bit really hard, they still haven't learned their times tables yet. All of that really takes a toll on the parent as well. And there's only so long that you can hold on to trying to stand behind your child. But we're aiming to break that down today. But if any of these sound familiar to you, then please just know you're not alone. Now, here are some of the things that Carla had tried. She had downloaded worksheets, hundreds of them, spent goodness knows how much money on ink for her printer, and none of them really worked. Sometimes Elgin could answer them, especially if she went and got an easier worksheet, something for children age 5 or 6, and he was able to have a go at that. But he clicked on, he understood that that wasn't the same level of work that other children were doing. Online lessons. She looked at the YouTube tutorials and looked online to try and find some extra lessons for him, but he wasn't interested. A lot of children as well, when it comes to social media and things like that, they're already excited about watching Mr. Beast or watching something else on YouTube that's far more interesting than doing a maths tutorial, and they won't really take it seriously. And a lot of them on there, the standard's not quite where it should be. Let's just put it that way. And and just to give you a fair warning here, there are many people on YouTube who are doing tutorials and they're not qualified teachers. They're just teaching a math skill that they know, which can be okay so long as it's related to what your child should be learning. But these YouTube tutorials weren't working for Elgin. She then also explained how she was using AI to try and get him to learn and understand maths better. These are a pandemic in themselves at the moment. They are honestly just glorified screen time. AI has amazing uses, but in terms of getting your child to engage with it and try and learn through it, it's not the best way. Once they've kind of tapped all the buttons and they've had a little bit of a play with it, the novelty wears off very quick, and then you're stuck paying the monthly subscription or whatever it is to have them access that work. It really, really isn't worth it. I would advise you away from that. But you try games as well. Schools often say, well, try Times Table Rockstars, try Mathletics or Prodigy. There's a few different ones that you might have come across whilst you're in school. But again, it's not the best use of your child's time if they're behind in maths. They only ever target certain skills and they can be useful in some senses, but overall it's not the best way to help your child make progress. Bribes as well. Perhaps some of you are nodding here thinking, I've said you can have the chocolate bar once we've done this work, or maybe you can get a slight raise on your pocket money this week if we do this work. And it's very tempting to do that because you just want the outcome. You just want them to be able to get their homework done. But that's not the sort of relationship you want your child to have with work. You want them to enjoy it. You want them to actually have some kind of emphasis of their own, or enthusiasm, I should say, of their own to get this work done. And then teacher reports as well, trying to find out from your teacher, what is it that I should be doing with my child? And then the sneaky practice sessions. I had to include this one in there because this is something that Carla mentioned to me that she was doing. And she said, yeah, sometimes if we're at the shops or we're in the car and I kind of ask him to add things up and I pretend we're just having a conversation, but then also ask him a question whilst we're at it. Kids are smart. They notice that you're doing this and they really don't like it. So if you've tried any of these things here, you might be nodding along to this, then just know this is what every parent tries when their child's falling behind in math. This is what parents try because they just want they want their child to be making progress. And one of the main problems I've found with these, you might have noticed this as well, is that they're not straightforward. It doesn't help you understand what's the real structure here, what's the real methods my child needs to be learning. We might think about when we were at school when we were younger, and I mean, maybe when I was younger it was a little bit similar, but still, the methods were quite simple. It was, this is how you add, this is how you times, this is how you divide, whatever it was, whereas things are different now, okay? And you need to understand that even within that, there are core skills that I'm going to be revealing to you today. And once you understand those, then you can help your child make amazing progress. So we did the baseline assessment with Elgin. And this was within that first week, we come just to find out what the children remember from the previous year. And Elgin scored 5%, which put him at the very, very bottom of the class. And, when I went to go and speak to Carla, I said, how's how does this look? Is this something that he's done before? And she said, yeah, every year, every single teacher report that we get, it says that he is struggling. Every single time I go and speak to his teacher at the start of the year, it's, yeah, he's working below, he's near the bottom of the class. And that was her concern, because she'd seen this at home too. When she tried to do homework with him, she could tell that this was something he was really, really struggling with, whether it was because he was counting on his fingers for really, really simple questions, simply guessing when a new maths question came up. She knew that this was kind of the level that he was working at. The problem was she just didn't know where to move from there. She didn't know what it was that she had to practice with. So we did what all teachers do. And maybe your child's teacher has done something similar. If they're struggling, maybe they've put in interventions and they've done something where on a morning or at some point during the day, they go and do some work outside of the classroom. Maybe they go and get some physical resources. This is what we did with Elgin as well. Something to help him try and see it, try and see the maths that we were working on. And then also in class support, when we were actually having the maths lessons themselves, making sure that there was someone there with him to try and support him. So this was all well and good because we were doing with it within the means of the curriculum. We were trying to support him in every way that we could. But then at home, Carla was telling me that things were just getting worse. This was basically the third year in a row that he had been struggling in maths, and she was almost at the point of giving up because she didn't know what else she's supposed to do to be able to support him. All of the homework that goes home, it's supposed to only take about 10, maybe 15 minutes. This was taking 40 minutes. It was taking 15 minutes, it was taking an hour alongside the arguments, alongside the complaints. And then even when she was working with him, he was arguing, he was complaining, he was comparing himself to other students as well. And saying, well, they find it easy because they're good at maths, or I can't do it. And it was really taking a toll on her and on him. So whilst we're trying to put in some things in place to really support him in school, none of it was really making a difference. And Carla just wanted to give him something to do at home. Then, this was about a week later, Carla came to me and she said, we've actually got a tutor. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And you didn't tell me about this tutor before. I said, yes, this tutor's been coming for 3 times a week for 3 months. And I was like, okay, so what's the tutor been working on? I said, well, he's been trying to do like some of the maths homework. Sometimes Elgin doesn't want to work with him, but he says that he's making progress, but I'm not sure. And I said, I'm not really seeing that progress either. She then let me know that he was charging $60 a week. Okay, I've put that on the dollar side there. We get people from all over the world coming to these webinars. For reference, that's about £35. Okay, that's quite a lot of money, even more, so probably about £40 per hour, which, for tutors, they can charge anywhere up to about $100, so up to about £70 per hour. So it's about the somewhat right range, but it's what this guy was telling her. He was just saying, yeah, I know he's making lots of progress, and some tutors are amazing, but this guy really, really wasn't. And after that conversation, Carla really said something that stuck with me, and maybe you'll kind of resonate with this too, because it had been so long, so many different times she had been trying to help him make progress at home. She said it's kind of like a storm on the horizon. And it's very metaphorical, but it makes sense. She said, if there's a storm very, very far away and you just ignore it and you face in the other direction, it's as if it isn't there because it's so far away in the distance. And at some point you're going to have to deal with it. But right now you can turn away and focus on other things. And she said, that's what it's like with my son's math struggles, because whilst he really struggles in maths, his reading's okay. His sports are okay. He loves playing with his friends. His writing is not too bad. But in other things, he's doing well. So we can kind of just focus on that and ignore the math skills. But she knew eventually, at some point, that storm was going to come. Now, that might be when he gets to high school. Maybe it's when he gets to university and he's still behind in maths. That's when it's going to be a real problem. So she knew she had to do something about it. Now, here's where the story gets very juicy. This is basically the part where it nearly got me into a bit of bother. When we go through all the assessments with the children, we have to input the data. So whatever their scores are for the children in our class, we have to write them down in a list between the arithmetic scores and then also their reasoning scores. Now, don't worry if you're not sure what that means. Arithmetic is actually the 4 operations within maths: the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And reasoning is like the application of those skills. Think about the question where it says, Jeff goes to the supermarket and he buys 25 pineapples. He eats 3 of them. How many are left? Something like that, even though it's probably going to give him a stomachache. I don't know why I said 25 pineapples. Anyway, so I was inputting the scores for my class for arithmetic and reasoning. And this is on a huge document, remember, that has all the children within the year group. So it's all the children aged 8 to 9. There's about 170 of them altogether. Now, parents and teachers often say that, well, the reasoning scores are always lower for the children that are struggling. And that's because reasoning's harder. It's always higher for the children that are doing well. So it proves the point that reasoning is higher. But really, that's just not the case, okay? Once I sorted out the columns, I tried to sort it so it was just the names of the children in my class, but instead I sorted it just by arithmetic, okay? And what I found was that there was a perfect correlation between high arithmetic scores and high reasoning scores, which showed me one thing. If you can master arithmetic, you can master maths. if you can understand the core skills, then the rest of maths is going to make sense. And now that's probably going to sound very, very confusing and very straightforward to someone that isn't working in school. But as I mentioned earlier on, teachers really overcomplicate things. And the curriculum that we're given to deliver around maths is so broad and it's so wide that there's not enough time spent focusing on these core skills. So that's when I had an idea. I already knew that Elgin was struggling. I already knew that at home he was missing out on trying to do his homework. He was doing anything he could, having tantrums and falling behind even within class. So we need to do something here. Let's just go and focus only on arithmetic. And that's something that I'm really not supposed to be doing as a teacher. I have a curriculum that I'm supposed to deliver, but seeing the impact that this was having on Elgin and also on his mum, Carla, I thought we need to do something different. And the progress was happening when we just focused on arithmetic, but it was still slow. So I thought there must be something else. There must be some other reason why just focusing on these core skills isn't helping him with the rest of maths. So I went back and I looked at 3 years worth of assessments and looked at every single question and thought, well, what is it that we actually need to do for each of these questions within the arithmetic paper? Remember, just the 4 core skills, the arithmetic test. What is it that we need to do? And I saw that there are 15 core skills. Just 15. If your child can master these 15 core skills, then they can get 100% on the arithmetic test paper. And surely, if they can master arithmetic, then the rest of maths is going to make sense as well. I then saw that you have to learn these in a very specific order as well. You can't just go, let's get the 15 core skills and we'll do number 14, we'll do number 12, we'll do number 8, we'll do number 9. You have to do them in a very, very specific order. So that's what I started doing with Elgin. We started taking each of these skills and building upon them one by one. The reason why, and I'll show you these core skills later on, so don't miss it, is that you need to understand what the different steps are. A good example of this is adding and subtracting 100. You're not going to learn that until you've done adding and subtracting 10. You're not going to do that until you've learned adding and subtracting 1. And that seems so straightforward and it seems so simple. But when children are falling behind in maths, it's because those earlier core skills have not been consolidated. So that's where you need to start. So immediately, Elgin responded really, really well. And he started to change his whole behavior towards maths. No longer was he pushing away or just guessing the answer. He was trying to think, well, what was the method that we used? And he was trying to go through the actual steps that we were teaching him, which was making a huge difference. And then here comes the big part, the assessment part too. Bearing in mind that he had scored 5% at the very start of the year. He was at the very, very bottom of the class, 5% in his maths assessment. We did them again after daily practice of the 15 core skills, and he scored 78%. Now, obviously, it's not perfect, but I'm sure you can see the huge change just there. There were tears at home time. His mum was so proud to see that he was finally participating within class. She finally felt as though she'd got a hold on his struggles, and that even though he might not have been at the perfection level, the difference from where he was making accelerated progress, and he was no longer miles behind his peers. It got rid of that worry and that fear that later down the road, she was going to have an issue with his maths. So all of this as well, and this is the unbelievable part, but it just shows when you teach children things correctly. And I need to be clear, we're not doing this for speed here. We're doing this for clarity and for children to properly understand. But the speed at which you can actually learn when you're given the core skills, when you're given the foundation, this only took 27 days of just focusing on the 15 core skills, teaching them in a very, very specific order. Now, Carla was amazed. She fired the tutor. She decided, I can take this on by myself now. I know exactly what it is that he needs to work on. And she said that he was working independently. He was excited about work. She didn't have to nag him to do his homework anymore. He was just doing it by himself. And the fact that he was ready to embrace new challenges as well was just fantastic. So Carla then started speaking to other parents. And they then thought, well, if Mr. McKell managed to have Elgin make that progress, my child's also struggling. Can I get that progress too? So I started working with some other children. Their parent invited me around to their house and we would just do some little tutoring sessions and stuff like that. Until I found out apparently I'm not allowed to do that, which is exactly how I nearly got myself into quite a lot of trouble. It was a difficult conversation with the head teacher, but they were basically saying it's to do with equal opportunities and being fair, that I can't go and work with other students around the school. So what happened next? One of the parents said, well, you can't come around and tutor, so could you just do me a video lesson? I thought, could I do a video lesson? And I thought I'll try it, because I'd already seen with parents using things like YouTube tutorials, and it wasn't really working. But I thought, you know what, I'm a teacher. I'm somewhat of a performer when I'm at the front of the class. I'll see what I can do. So I created a video lesson going through the 15 core skills, the same ones that I had taught to Elgin that helped him make that massive progress. And the parent that I gave it to was amazed. They said, I can't believe it. My child actually sat and they watched, they engaged, they did the work that was in front of them. And then from there, more and more parents started asking for these videos. And eventually I had a sequence of lessons teaching the 15 core skills, and I called it Arithmetic Mastery. And that is how it first started. And since then, hundreds of children have gone through the same process, going through the 15 core skills, and made amazing progress. And the main thing here is the feedback that I get from the parents. is because what they're telling me is that they've had years and years of not understanding why their child is struggling, not understanding what is it that's causing my child to fall behind. Why are they counting on their fingers when they should just be doing a written method? Why are they not even trying the answer and just guessing? Why do they have such a fear of failure? Why, even when I ask them something very, very simple, they can't explain it to me? No one had ever explained this to them before. And all the teacher reports that they had received, all the times they had a test, they couldn't understand what is that barrier, what is that wall. And this is it. It is the 15 core skills. It's the foundations. Because those foundations aren't there, your child is not able to make the progress that they're supposed to make. Now, this is really the big secret. If you want your child to master math, the one area, the one thing that you need children to focus on is arithmetic. Now, what can you do? You need to help your child stop struggling. You need to help them fill in the gaps and teach them the 15 core skills in order. But every time I do this, I also get almost complaints, I guess, from the parents of, well, why isn't this happening in school? What is it that school's doing that's sabotaging my child's learning when they should be learning these 15 core skills? Instead, they almost don't believe me that it's that simple. But as I explained, nothing has changed. The curriculum is so broad that there's not enough time spent on the core skills. Children all learn at different rates. So some of them pick it up from the small number of lessons that are spent learning these skills. Some of them pick it up whilst others don't. And if your child is perhaps one of those that is falling behind, if they're struggling in maths, maybe they just didn't pick up some of the key skills that are taught earlier on in school, and they just need that reminder. They need that support just to lay those foundations, and then they're able to step up and meet and be at the same level of their peers. Now, just to show you, as I've already mentioned, it's not about speed, but just to show you how quick your child can catch up when they focus on the right skills, I want to show you this story about Christopher. Now, Christopher was supposed to be placed in an age group of children aged 7 and 8. However, the school admissions team, when he joined his new school, they actually put him in a class of 8 to 9-year-olds. So he was 1 year ahead of where he was supposed to be. And obviously he was completely overwhelmed. He wasn't an amazing mathematician at that point anyway, but trying to do work that was a year above the level that he was already working at was really, really difficult for him. So what happened was that his mum got hold of the 15 core skills of arithmetic mastery and started working through it bit by bit. Because she'd explained to me that whilst he is actually okay at working at home, it's not a huge issue. She just can see that there's lots and lots of gaps. But she started going through the arithmetic mastery program. She said it was so simple. It was step by step. Every single lesson he simply watches, he copies, and then he does his own example of it. It's something he can pause and play throughout, so it's at his own speed. And all the lessons are just between 5 and 15 minutes per session. So he's able to do it and do it consistently. Now, he worked on this for 3 months. It was just under 90 days. And by the end of this, he ended up finishing in the top 10% of his new age group. Bearing in mind here that he was supposed to be in the age group of 7 to 8-year-olds, but instead was working with 8 and 9-year-olds, and he finished in the top 10% because the foundations were laid and he was able to focus so hard on those core skills, which basically meant he completed a year worth of maths work in basically 90 days, which is unbelievable. Now, this was one of the things I mentioned at the start. A new study just out of Harvard. Many parents feel concerned and they're like, well, it's not as good as having a tutor. It's not as good as being in school. They need to actually have someone to sit with them. I need to sit with them, but I don't have the time or I don't have the expertise. But a new study just out of Harvard explains that home learning can be as effective or even better than working in schools. And it's really interesting because it says that this is particularly true for children who are low on confidence. Now, children with low on confidence, they really do thrive in home settings so long as the work is properly suited to them. That's not to say you can just go and download any worksheet and it's going to work. Maybe you've already tried that. You've had a look online, you've found the worksheets, or you found the YouTube tutorials and thought, yeah, these don't really work for my child if they're low in confidence. But what needs to happen is it needs to be something that really works for them. And so Casey's story is a really good example of that. Casey was actually selective mute. That is how low on confidence she was. She had a voice, but she really just didn't want to use it. And she was really scared to participate. Every report that her mum got from school would say things like, she doesn't put her hand up. Any work that I give her, she doesn't try. She doesn't start. She'll start writing an answer, then scribble it out. She doesn't want to get things wrong. And she's very, very intimidated by her peers. Not because there was bullying or something like that, just because she was seeing all of them answering questions while she struggled. And Casey even said to her mum, she said, it's like the other children in school know the answer before the teacher has even taught, and I don't understand how. But now you know how, don't you? It's because they had an understanding of arithmetic. They had that foundational understanding, those skills, the 15 core skills. The other children had that, and Casey did not. Now, if you're thinking, I don't know how to help my child, I don't know how to do these 15 core skills, that's exactly what the home learning mechanism I'm showing you here actually does. She went through the 15 core skills from home. It was self-paced. It was no judgment. She felt as though she could pause, she could play, she could move at her own pace. It felt like it was just her and the teacher, and she grew in confidence lesson by lesson. And then the next report that her mum got from school explained, she's raising her hand, she's participating, she's finally taking part. And her mum felt so proud and finally felt in control that, her daughter can do this. She just needed to rebuild those foundations. And because she was given something that was step by step, something that she could just work on bit by bit, she was able to make that progress. Now, the part so many people are likely waiting for, the forgotten theory. If your child is very, very enthusiastic about watching TV, playing video games, they're really, really hooked and focused whilst they do that. But as soon as you bring out the homework, as soon as you bring out some kind of maths work, they switch off. Then don't worry. There is a forgotten theory that was actually solving this problem 100 years ago. Not like there was video games 100 years ago, I don't think. But this was really solved 100 years ago. And it's so interesting because teachers learn about this, but none of them use it. It's from a man called Lev Vygotsky. We talked about this whilst we are in our teacher studies at university. And it was around about the 1930s, where he explains something called the zone of proximal development theory. And I know I'm going to sound like one of those university academics, so I promise to go through this quickly because it's super interesting. And it explains children are able to make progress by completing work that is more challenging than what they can currently do. So they're doing work that's harder than the level that they're at, so long as there's someone to help them. Maybe that's a parent, maybe that's a teacher, a tutor, someone that can support them in that. However, there's a second part to this theory nobody talks about. And what I did was I took it and put it straight into the system because it works amazingly. You don't need to sit with them in order to get them to focus. All you need to do is give them work that is ever so slightly above their difficulty level. So rather than it being, here's like your level 1, here's your level 2, you need to give them work that's just slightly above, okay? Because what it does is it practically forces your child's brain to focus on the work in front of them by using prior knowledge. Now, a really good example of how this works is Adam. Now, Adam had ADHD, which basically meant that he found it very, very hard to motivate himself to do work. It's to do with different neural pathways within the brain that literally make it harder for children to be motivated to do tasks unless there is a severe consequence or a really, really strong reward. And this made it very difficult for him, especially at home, because his parents said, anything we put in front of him, he's not interested in. But then they would get even more frustrated. And this is something that was difficult for the parents too, that they would see him grab the iPad and just be glued to it. Now, here's the thing. It's because games and iPads and things like that, they already have this zone of proximal development, this kind of idea of a 1% progression. They have that built in. You think, well, if you're playing a video game, you're going to get my terrible gaming lingo here, I don't even know what to call it, where you don't go from level 1 to level 10. It doesn't work like that. You go from level 1 to level 2. And some of the skills that you need to complete level 2, you've also gained in level 1, and then you move to level 3 and 4 and 5 and so on and so on. That is exactly what I've done with the 15 core skills by putting them in the order that they're in. By helping children go from adding 1 to adding 10 to adding 100 to adding 1,000 to then subtracting 1, subtracting 10, subtracting 100, subtracting it. Giving them that clear progression means that they have the 1% improvement built in. They have to use their prior knowledge in order to understand the next part, which literally does tune in their brain. It's as if you put the blinkers on them to make them want to actually focus and make that progress. Now, Adam's results were amazing. He was someone that was really, really struggling in school. In fact, he was scoring 8% in his math tests. And mum and dad were really, really concerned because they thought, we can't go on like this. We can't allow him just to keep falling further and further and further behind throughout school. But after he'd gone through the 15 core skills, he actually ended up scoring 100% in one of his assessments. And all of that happened in just 60 days. But the score itself, that really impressed the teacher, because the teacher went, goodness me, I've never seen this work from him before. I've never seen him have this much focus on his tasks. But for mum and dad, that was the bigger part, that suddenly he'd shown consistency by working independently over the course of 60 days. And they thought, my goodness, this is something that's really going to help him for the rest of his life. Improving in maths is one thing, and that's vitally important, but actually developing a skill that you need through high school and through university as you get older, we need to have time where we work independently. We need to force ourselves to get on with a task and to focus. And he was learning how to do that at just 9 years old because of having this system where he saw by himself, I just go step by step by step by step, and I get better and I get better and I get better. And that was the motivation that really worked for him, of a child that had a genuine need due to some slight differences within his mind, that he was able to still make that progress as well. Now, here's the thing. You know how to help your child make progress. You know that they need to learn the 15 core skills in order, because that's the foundational understanding. The fact that they've not mastered arithmetic is why your child is struggling in maths. And I have shown you this because I've done over a decade of working in schools. I've looked at 3 years of assessment data, and I've put the 15 core skills and tested them and put them in a very precise order. You know how, but what do you teach? Because I've explained, so I've given you little tasters explaining as well as add 1, add 10, add 100, subtract 1, subtract, but there's so much more to it. Let me show you just now. And if you are taking screenshots, if you are recording this part, then this is the most important part that you're going to want to record. I'm going to reveal to you my exact 15 core skills in the order that they need to be taught so that it's here for you. Then you can use it. Are you ready? Okay. These are the 15 core skills. Add and subtract 10, add and subtract 100, add and subtract numbers more than 100, add and subtract 1000. Add and subtract 3-digit numbers, add and subtract 4-digit numbers, add and subtract decimals, add and subtract fractions. As you can see, steps 1 through to 8 are all to do with addition and subtraction, but just in different ways, okay? As I mentioned before, we have arithmetic and reasoning. This is arithmetic. This is the foundation. We have addition and subtraction, and then now you'll see it's multiplication and division. Number 9, times tables. Multiplying 2-digit by 1-digit, multiplying 3-digit by 1-digit, multiplying 3-digit numbers together, dividing 2-digit by 1-digit, multiplying and dividing by 10, 100, 1000, and then finding fractions of an amount. This is in this order because this is the order that works. You may see, if you have a little bit of an understanding of maths, how these things relate to each other. Even just at the top there with the add 10, add 100, more than 100, add 1000, there's a clear progression there. And with the multiplying 2-digit by 1-digit, multiplying 3-digit by 1-digit, that's the kind of progression that I'm talking about here. But specifically with going from add and subtract to times and divide, this is the thing that is going to make your child make that progress. Okay, this really is that big secret that I spoke about. Mastering arithmetic allows you to master the rest of maths. So, just like to ask you a question. So you know that mastering arithmetic is what it takes. Mastering arithmetic is how you're going to get your child to improve in maths. You know that they're not going to make that improvement from school because as much as we try and put in as teachers, as much support as we try and give, that is not what it's going to be that will help your child make progress. Learning from home is how they make that progress. It's the 15 core skills. That's what you need to catch up in maths. And really, I think you kind of have 3 options from here. Now that you have been given this knowledge and given this understanding, that you can either do it yourself, you could hire a tutor, or you could listen to my offer. Just before you agree to listen to my offer, let me just explain to you the do it yourself, that you'll have to go and get these resources. I've told you what they are. I told you what the 15 core skills are, but you'll have to go and get those resources yourself. You'll have to understand how to do the different methods within that. Do you have the time? Do you have the effort? Do you have the expertise to be able to do that yourself? You could hire a tutor. I mentioned tutors can charge between $40 and $100 per hour, or if you're in the UK, then that's going to be somewhere between $30 and $70 likely per hour. Do you have that kind of money to spend? Well, if you're thinking that's not something that I really want to do, to try and make sure that my child's making that progress over a really long period of time by spending that much money, then you might like to listen to my offer. It's only going to take about 5 minutes. I'm just going to quickly go through it. And if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to let me know at the end. This is Arithmetic Mastery 2.0. This is the exact system that I have shown with other children working to help them master the 15 core skills. It's taken me over 5 years to create this system, and it teaches the 15 core skills in order. It has proven results from Elgin, from Casey, from Adam, from Christopher, and it shows all of the 15 core skills across 91 lessons. These 91 lessons are 5 to 15 minutes long, and they teach your children the exact methods. You can see a couple of examples of them just there, the exact methods that your child needs to do in order to master arithmetic. As well as that, for the offer today, there are the assessments, 27 of these in total. The 27 assessments include full arithmetic tests and also mini tests for each of the 15 core skills to make sure you can actually see the progress that your child is making. These are amazing for motivation. Christopher loved these as he was seeing himself go through during those 90 days that he was going through the system. That really, really helped him. And also Carla, when she saw Elgin going through these different assessments as well. She said it was so helpful for her as a mum to actually see what is it that he's learning. Has he understood that one? And if he didn't, she can tell him just to go back to the start so she knows he's not just coasting his way through the lesson. She can actually see, has he taken this in or has he not? The other thing as well, so many parents say, is that finally it gives them something step by step. They finally see the correct structure of, right, they need to do these lessons and learn this skill. They need to do these lessons and learn this skill. It shows them exactly what they're being assessed on. So that is why I've included the assessments within this. Now, Arithmetic Mastery, in case you're wondering why this is priced in dollars, I do have people from all over the world buying this. So I'm going to show you the price in dollars, and at the very end, I will show you what the price is in pounds. So for $448, it's the Arithmetic Mastery 2.0 course for $249, and the assessments and the trackers, which is $199. But I've not stopped there. Just in case you're thinking, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to do this, I really would like a little bit more support, then that's fine. You get direct access to me for every single one of the lessons within the course. All you have to do is scroll down and type in a little box underneath. Let me just quickly show you what that one looks like just here. As you can see, this is the sorting, this is the course right here. All of the different lessons underneath, you click on the module, you click on the lesson that you would like to learn. It'll pop up just here on the video. Then, as someone else has done just at the bottom there, you can come in and say, I did not understand that part. Please help me, and then you press send, and then I will be able to give you that full feedback and support with your child as well. All the videos are all in here with a little progress bar there at the top as well. So the direct access to me, that's for your feedback. It's so that I can support you, I can support your child as well. Now, if you wanted to get a tutor for all 91 lessons based on the prices that I was just explaining there, for $40 to $100 per hour, that's anything like $3,000 to $9,000 to get the same amount of tuition as the 91 lessons within the Arithmetic Mastery 2.0 course. Now, altogether, that would be $249 for the Arithmetic Mastery 2.0 program, $199 for the assessments and the trackers, and then $387 as the access to me. The reason why I've put $387 on there is because it costs $129 per month. Some parents pay that just so they can have me as a little bit of an educational consultant month by month. I put the 3-month price on there, but really it's for as long as your child is doing the course. So that is why I've put the access to me on there. Now, you might be thinking, what happens next? After my child is done the Arithmetic Mastery course, what are they going to do? I don't want them just to stop after 60 days, after 90 days. I want them to keep going, which is why I've included the Place Value workbook. Place Value, I won't go into full detail with it now, but it's basically what are the different digits within a number actually worth to help children understand representing numbers in different ways. It's the exact next step after arithmetic that children aged 8 to 9 need to master in order to master maths. So it really keeps the momentum going. And that is $149. So again, you get the Arithmetic Mastery, the assessments and the trackers, the access to me, and the Place Value workbook, bring the total value to $984. However, I wanted to give something to you as well, the parent, to help you understand what it is that your child's actually doing in school, which is why I've included the parent guide, which has got over 10 years of teacher knowledge and a deep dive into the 15 core skills so that you can truly understand it. Once your child is done, they'll be given a certificate, and also just to help them enjoy things a little bit more, I've included my Magic Maths ebook. I always thought of myself as a little bit of a magician when I was younger, but I never quite got there, so I've used math to try and fulfill that ambition that I once had. So altogether, here's what you're going to be getting. It is the Arithmetic Mastery 2.0 course for $249. The assessments and the trackers, $199. Access to me, got the 3-month price in there, but it's for as long as your child is doing the course. The Place Value workbook for $149, so you can go on to the exact next step as soon as they are done. The parent guide, certificate, and the Magic Math ebook just for your child, which brings the total value of this offer to $1,241, or in pounds, £925. But I'm not going to be charging out for you today. However, if I was, if you paid $1,241 or £925, and all that happened was your child started participating in class, would that be worth it? If it meant that you never had to get a tutor ever again, and that your child was just no longer in the bottom but in the middle of the class, and that they were consistently working at home, you were no longer having to nag them to get them to do work. Maybe they were going and selecting homework to go and do by themselves. Would that be worth $1,241? Would that be worth £925? Maybe you're thinking, I don't need to buy any more workbooks. How much do they cost? Maybe you're thinking, this is all I wanted, to have some structure, to know exactly what it is that my child needs to be learning. Is that worth £925, $1,241? Well, even if it is, that's not what you're going to pay. Today, all I'm going to charge you for is the course. That means for $249, you get the Arithmetic Mastery 2.0 program and every single one of the other bonuses that you see just there. That's £186 as a one-time payment. You get to try the course. You get to go through all the lessons with your child. You get to get everything else within there with the assessments, the access to me, the Place Value workbook, the parent guide, certificates, and the Magic Math for $249. However, if you're thinking, I'm not too sure about this, maybe my child isn't going to work, I've still not quite convinced you with all the other children, including Adam, who had ADHD, a medical condition that made it difficult for him to focus, even though he was able to do it, then you have 30 days. Within that 30-day window, you get to try it. You get to see if it works for you. And if you're thinking, no, for me, this is no good, you just let me know and I'll give you a full refund and let you keep all of the bonuses. If you go to the chat box just now, you'll see that I've just put a link in there. You can go and click on that link and it will take you to the order form page, which looks like this. Here on the order form page, you can see all of the things that you will be getting within the course. The total value of $1,249 for just $249. All you have to do is put your details in just here, and then you can get it instant access. And you can start this very weekend with your child, start making that progress. So once again, Arithmetic Mastery 2.0, our assessments and the trackers, the access to me, the Place Value workbook, parent guide, certificate, Magic Maths, all of that there. Total value of £925. Yours for just £186. So really, if we go back to those 3 options that we had, you could do this yourself. It's going to take time, it's going to take effort. You could hire a tutor to get those 91 lessons done. It's going to be £3,000 to £9,000, around about $3,000 to $9,000, sorry, around about £7,000. Or you can get Arithmetic Mastery 2.0 today. Just $249 ongoing support and a 30-day risk-free guarantee. So long as your child completes the first 30 lessons in 30 days and you think this is not for me, then you can ask me and I will give you that money right back as a guarantee. So if there are any questions, please let me know. We have the chat box just here. I'm going to hang around the next few minutes. Anyone has any questions, then please let me know. I'm happy to answer them.